Hi, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, TDS episode 4. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Brian Schaffer, the disappearance of him back in 2006. My name is Dallas, and I'm here with my partner, Timmy, and he's on his true crime podcast. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm so
so
nervous.
no, you're good. So I'm Tim Solberg.
Oh,
I've got True Crime with a K. And just like Dallas said, we're going to be going over the Brian Schaefer case. If you're in chat today, please leave us a comment. If there's any cases you want to see, we definitely want to take those on. So just, you can either leave it on Dallas's channel or my channel, and we'll continue to go live every Friday at 9:30 p.m. So join us here. We love the interaction. And there's so many cases out there right now that we would love to cover. And there might be even nights where we do 2 or 3 if they're shorter cases. So any suggestions would help. So that being said, Brian Schaefer, 2006, Dallas, take it away. Where are we going with this one? It's a pretty freaky case.
okay, so with this one, obviously, he went missing in 2006. He was out with friends that evening. He was at a bar. He was going to he was a medical student at Ohio State University. And he was last seen just with two girls at outside the Ugly Tuna Saloon in Columbus, Ohio. There's been a lot of theories, a lot of conspiracies around this case. Unfortunately, he was seen on camera around, I believe the last time he was seen on camera was 1:55 in the morning, and then no one has seen him since. So everyone kind of thought that maybe he went home with somebody. His friends thought he went home already. Really, you don't really, the alarm bells never went off until the next day. Um, nobody knows where he went. Nobody knows. He never went outside, never went back into the bar. Um, why? Where? Like, what happened? So we're just kind of dive into that. So yes, so he was seen on April 1st, 2016 was the last time that he was seen, and he went out and he was celebrating spring break. The footage that I just seen was with him and two girls outside the bar. There was two police officers. They're kind of having some conspiracy theories of maybe he had put his cell phone in these girls' purse. If that is to be true or not. Unfortunately, I was trying to find out if they had like pinged his cell phone. I could unfortunately find anything about that. But other than that, that's just kind of where I am at. And Tim, if you want to hop in, that's good.
Yeah. What was weird for this case for me is like he's a student, right? He's got a girlfriend, decides not to spend time with his girlfriend that night because he's going to go out with Clint, his best friend, right? Clint Florence. And they decide that they're going to go bar hopping, right? And they start at the saloon. Basically, they go bar hopping and end up back. And you see him on camera going into the bar. This is where my mind is blown. Is he goes into the bar and then he just never comes out. He doesn't go out the back, doesn't go out the front, and then the conspiracy theories start. Is he in the walls? Was he carried out piece by piece, right? Like all the gruesome details that all the online sleuths are throwing out there. But it makes you stop and think for just a minute what really did happen to him, because did he, and I don't want to say sneak out, right? Because it's not likely that he snuck out, but did he walk out behind somebody? Because really there wasn't very many people. I think there was 4 left, right? And so did he walk out behind somebody? They didn't see him. Was he passed out and then walked out at a different time? Like there's just no evidence that shows that. And to me, I'm like, wow, this guy just disappeared. And like I asked you before, Dal, I was like, maybe it's not a negative thing. Maybe he wanted to disappear. And that is one of the conspiracy theories, that maybe he was trying to get away from his girlfriend or his family. And I want to go down that road, but everything in my intuition says no, something happened, and Meredith and Clint know what happened to this guy. But I just don't know.
Ooh. Like that's like one of the kids. Obviously, once you mention the mom, because everyone's like, well, how is he getting through school? Who was paying it? Was his mom? Like, was she going to cut him off? Like, is that why he was leaving? She passed away. Oh, like so then he went missing a few months after that. And does he have enough money to live? So that was another one. Like, where's the money? Because obviously, follow the money, you'll find him, but no one can come up with anything. And then like you said, like friends, where are they? Or like where is he? But if you want to go missing and you do have money, maybe you're stashing it somewhere. I don't know.
Cash, yeah, you're right. Well, and to your point, one of the conspiracies is that maybe he slipped his phone to those girls, right, on camera. But his girlfriend does call the phone later on, and it's going through, like it's ringing. Nobody's answering.
Yeah.
Um, and it's ringing, so she's thinking like, hey, his phone goes live because it was dead for a while, and then it goes live. But there's so many things that could happen there too. I worked at Verizon for a long time. A lot of times people would bring in phones that they found. A lot of times they would try to charge them and go through the contacts and then try to call the contacts. In this case, I don't think anybody was called, but that to me is not abnormal, but it still raises some suspicions of, what happened to his phone. And then to your point, he did come from a somewhat wealthy family. Was he, hoarding cash? And I don't know. I still go back to Clinton Meredith, and I think I'm getting her name right. I'm pretty sure it's Meredith. Yeah, Meredith Reed. And I'm thinking like, what one, there's really no reason why Clint would have anything to do with this, or Meredith would, but wouldn't that be the perfect crime? Because maybe he upset them, maybe they got into an altercation, maybe there's some jealousy there. There's a lot of different reasons why we see people get murdered or or disappear. So what are your thoughts on the best friend and the girl that they were with that night?
Ooh. I don't know, but it is true. It's true. Like it can happen, and it's 100% true. There was like another documentary with a wife and best friend. All of a sudden the husband goes missing, and better yet, crocodiles might have ate them. Nobody would have known, and nothing gets told unless either someone wants to slip, someone wants to hurt somebody. I'm going to tell on you. You disrespect me. If that was the case, we hopefully would have heard something by now if it had anything to do with them. Because when you kind of, from what I've like seen on other documentaries, when you team up with another partner and there starts fighting and the truth starts coming out, then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to tell on you because you're doing something to me, and then vice versa. So who knows? But it could be a possibility. I hope not. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Is somebody really worth all that? Really? Like, you're going to
Well,
go, I don't know.
it's the same old story of like if you look at the Chris Watts case where he was, yeah, and he was dating Nicole at the time, and he decides to kill his wife and his kids to make that happen. Any logical human being would say that is not what you should do. You should just move
No.
on, right? Like it would have been that easy, that simple. And for whatever reason, he does that. So going back to your point, that could be jealousy. It could be just people wired wrong, where it's like this is their only way out, or this is the only way that they see the solution in the future, right? And there could be many different reasons. It could be mental health. It could be past history. It could be anger. It could be jealousy. And I'm not saying that they're the ones that did it, but they got to know something, right? Now, to be fair, though, there is a lot of cases out there where the best friend does get accused and then ends up not knowing or wasn't a part of it. So that happens as well. And then the other thing is, we were kind of talking about missing people. Like 90% of them actually go missing. Probably there's, probably even less than 10%. I'm just making these numbers up. But where people want to disappear on their own. The other thing that I think of is, you know, people get caught because somebody breaks somewhere. You know what I mean? And yeah, like No Contact said, and she left this in my chat too, or on the channel, is that she heard that his best friend has the info, right, with Clint, and I've heard that too. But what I think about is when somebody commits a crime like this with another person, right? Your secret's only safe if you're the only person that knows it.
Exactly.
And where a lot of people get busted is somebody breaks, to your point. Now, maybe nobody's broken this case yet because they don't have a lot to lose and they haven't got into an argument or a fight or haven't had that right pressure. But I'm sure the investigators are probably working hard to continue that pressure to see if that does break.
Right? Like how I missed how old he is. 27. So 27, it's 18 years ago now. So that's a long time to be keeping a secret.
Well,
That's
yeah. It,
that's
but would
going to be
you ever,
gone. Like, even
but
if you wanted to do it.
think from a
Sorry, go
logical
ahead.
person side, right? Like you've never murdered anybody.
No,
But would you tell
no.
that secret? if you had that? Like you'd probably just be broken up or whatever. Maybe you would, right? Like some people might have that guilty conscience. I don't know. I would be, I mean, I'd probably just be wrecked for the rest of my life, but I also wouldn't want to spend the rest of my life in jail. You know what I mean? Just saying.
Yeah, no, I don't think I would want to. Not that I don't think I would want to. I just I just don't think no one's really worth it, personally. Like I get you get angry and stuff and certain things happen and that, but or you might think like this is your only out and
Yeah.
it's so not. But I've never been put in the situation that I had to be in that situation because I hope that I somewhat of sound body and mind where I'm like, why do I need to be jealous over this person that much, right? Like, but
People deal with grief
people
and
are crazy.
anger. Yeah.
People go even like the sanest people can fly off the handle. Unfortunately, like we witnessed it here back in January. You know, there was this dad who unfortunately had like went after stabbed the mom outside their elementary school, like the kids' elementary school, and he was a media like what am I trying to say? Motivational speaker.
Yeah.
He has YouTube videos on that stuff and totally sane, like totally awesome. Whatever, pushes you off the deep end. Sometimes it's probably hard coming back from that.
Yeah. I
But
couldn't imagine being in that situation just because, when you get
mhm,
backed up into a corner, you never know what you're going to do. But at the same time, I feel like I've been through a lot of grief in my life where I just
yeah,
don't think there's anything that would push me to make those kind of decisions, right? Especially
no,
if they're not in the moment, right? Like if you got a plan and think about that, there's got to be something in your head that's just wired wrong or something in your past or something in your life that, and at that point you just got to get help. But this case here is very similar to a case in Spirit River, British Columbia with Corey Braun. And I did a video on this about a year and a half ago. And the reason why I picked it was I was going through all of the British Columbia missing cases as I was going across Canada. And this one popped up, and right around the same time, I think this was a couple of years before, but right around that same period, right, same decade, and the name was Corey Braun. And what's very eerily similar is Corey Braun works in the oil field, right? Works all the time, pretty big guy. Ends up going to Spirit River. He's doing like a recognition type dinner with the company, right? Company dinner. So that's the only reason why he's in town. He's not even working. And he goes out, has his dinner. Him and his friends go to a bar. Spirit River is a tiny town, right? I don't even know if you could
yeah,
call it a town. It's probably still recognized as a village versus a town. And they get into an altercation later on as they go to the gas station to get their snacks and kind of like that after bar, routine that a lot of people do, right? If you're not going to a party, a lot of people get hungry after they go get their snacks, and then they walk back to their hotel. And the guys that he was with, they're his friends but co-workers, they see him walking towards his apartment. If you see the apartment, they have like the outside doors, right? So Corey Braun, he's almost to his apartment. They go into their apartment. They wake up the next morning, disappeared, never to be seen again. Now, obviously, there's some conspiracy there as well. A little bit different because they don't think his friends or coworkers had anything to do with it. But there's a lot of speculation around the people that he had altercations with at
mhm,
the gas station. And is that feasible? It is. Now, keep in mind, Spirit River's got a lot of woods around it, right? Northern British Columbia. You know that. Did he go for a walk? Was he drunk when it happened? I mean, it's just as likely that he got attacked by a grizzly bear or a wolf or, a mountain lion and, something like that happened as it is feasible that, somebody did him harm, right? Because there was no foul play suspected at the actual hotel. Like, door wasn't kicked in, but did he actually make it to his hotel room is what the question is. And when I did that story, what one of my members on my channel said, "Hey, do the Brian Schaffer story," and I was just like, switch out the names, switch out Canada for the U.S., and we've got a story here. And how does this
yeah.
happen?
I don't know how. Honestly, it still baffles me how someone can just kind of fall off the face of the earth with no trace. Like they were trying to say, I was watching one video, or they were saying that maybe he hopped out of a window. on one of the buildings, and they're like, well, like the one guy's like, we scorched like top to bottom in the like the walls were cement, the floors are cement. Like, where did he go? Obviously, like you said, like maybe he went out somewhere. Like, you just don't know where he went. Like, there's no other camera footage of him anywhere other than in that little lobby beside the bar. That was it.
Well, and
So
if something,
Affleck,
yeah, if something happened in the bar though, you would think, I don't know, there just seems like there would be a lot more evidence, and you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, police and authorities, um, yeah, I heard that too. No context about the no cameras in the hotel parking lot, but they were saying that there was cameras in the back that were pointing that they couldn't see. Now again, you know, could lighting, all of that stuff could play a factor into it. And then you know, where does he go from there? And that's a real possibility, right? Might have slipped out the back, but there was construction happening in the back as well. And a lot of people thought maybe he fell and slipped somewhere, and then you know, cement was poured over him, accidental, right? But maybe
right?
something did happen in the bar. My only thing about the bar and these two people is they haven't cracked for so long. Now it doesn't mean anything, and to no
Yeah.
context point, you know, Clint knows something, but who knows what he knows. And the other thing too, it's been what, 18 years. His memory is not going to be as fresh as it was the night that it happened. So there's going to be a lot of gaps filled in. And if you're like me and you're on the internet and you're reading stories and you're watching the news and doing all that stuff, a lot of those gaps can be filled in with other people's thoughts, conspiracies, and things that happen. And then that fills in your memory as you go. So I would hate to be somebody that's testifying about what happened 18 years ago, because what I think I remember today, if I didn't put that down on paper or do a recording, is going to be drastically different than what happened. And we saw that in the Nikolai Mew case, and that was only
Oh,
two
really?
years. Yes, those kids were
You would think
like,
like something so horrific that you would remember forever. I've
right.
well, no. Oh,
That's why I thought Nikolai Mew was going to be found innocent, because it was stated so many times that he said he was out there looking for little girls, right? But never once on
oh,
camera did that ever come across, right?
right,
So then it
right.
was like it happened before. So if you apply that same math times or add another 16 years, what is the witness, right? And maybe it's a suspect and not a witness. What are they going to remember from that night from 18? Like, they're going to remember details and big details, but there's going to be a lot of gaps that they're going to miss. And then you got to think of how many people come out and lie after and want that clout. Like, there's just so much stuff going on in this case that I'm like, somebody I would think would have had to have broke at some point. Like, what about Meredith? Right? Like, what does she know? Maybe she doesn't know anything. Maybe she was drinking at the bar. Who knows? Right? And then they're in the
Even
back.
like a staff member,
Yeah,
waitress, bartender. Why not? Why? Like, if I was there, I'd be like, hey, yeah, I remember I gave him a beer, but that's all. Or you don't even remember them. But how come you're not saying, like, how come no one has come forward like that? Because if there was anything that happening in the bar, of course, me being a waitress who's totally sober, I would remember something happening.
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
100%.
It.
But
I don't know.
if no one's not coming forward, then maybe nothing happened in the bar. So what happened?
Well, let me ask you this, Dallas. Let's have a little bit of fun with this, right? Because you know
Okay.
we're always
Okay.
talking facts and then adding our own stuff. Why don't we just
Right?
make a conspiracy? Like, what would be the wildest thing that happened to this guy, right?
Ooh.
Like, just something that hasn't popped up yet, right? Like, I mean, every other conspiracy is out there.
Right? I don't think nothing happened in the bar. Like, I don't know. Like, that's a tough one because when you got way too many witnesses, too many people, like someone would crack by now for sure. There's a weak link in everything. So, like you said, okay, you got the best friends, maybe the two girls that he was standing outside the bar with. Like, do they have his phone? Because no one really said was the phone in the purse.
Yeah,
Like, if I had some guy's phone who went missing, I'm hucking out. I'm sorry, I want no part of it because that brings police, that brings court, that brings a whole lot of drama into my life that I want no part about with, unfortunately, a stranger.
yeah.
People panic. So, did they ping the cell phone? Like, is there any, like, well, you're working at like a cell phone Verizon. Like, They have pinged the cell phones back in the day, like back in the day, 2006.
So yeah, I'll kind of give you the technical answer on that one. So
Yeah.
basically, you can ping um, cell phones, but it's triangulated. So basically,
Okay.
back in those days, we used CDMA, which basically meant that we had a lot more range because the frequency was lower. And typically, like for your phone, you could use 850 or 1900 on Verizon. Now, every carrier had a little bit different, so it could have been 900, 950, or even 800. And then you'd see your top frequencies anywhere from like 17 to 2100, or Sprint was using, I can't remember what they were called. It was like Clearwire was the company, and it was like a big Wi-Fi. And so what that does is it pings between those three towers. So it doesn't give you like an accurate spot of where they're at, but just a relatively. I think back when we would go to court, because we would get called to go to court and be summoned
Mhm.
in cases like murder cases and stuff. I never went to a murder case, but one of my store managers that worked for me at the time had to go represent in a murder case. Yeah. And we had to be very specific that that location can be within 4 to 5 houses in a range. So if it falls on, let's say a ping fell on my house, it could be any one of my neighbors within like a 5 house radius. So they couldn't just
Gotcha.
come attack me and be like, hey, we know that this is your house. um,
Gotcha.
so that could have happened. The other thing that I look at, and I was trying to look it up on my phone, but essentially, what was that kid's name? Riley Strain, right? The Missouri student that went missing. It was what, in Tennessee. That's kind of eerily similar, but there was more cameras, so you can see Riley walking down the street. You can see where he's intoxicated, and he ends up in the river, essentially, right, or right by the river. And at this point, there's some conspiracies there, but I don't think they're going to suspect foul play, right? So is this something where Brian Schaffer, he does get out? Let's say he goes, and where no contact said, or no context, sorry. He goes out the back through the parking lot and then just starts walking, right? Ends up in the Ohio
Right.
River or whatever that river is called there, and then just disappears. Maybe he dropped his phone at some point, right? Maybe it's not a conspiracy at all. Maybe he didn't put his phone with those two girls. Maybe he dropped it, somebody found it, they turned it on, realized, like, hey, you know, yep, I'm not going to answer anything. Yeah, poor Riley for sure. But you could see Riley on camera. Now, if we took the camera footage where he's walking on the road on the sidewalk, right, or the camera footage where he's with the cop, we'd be in a very similar situation right now, although they did find his body, right? But
Right.
think about it. If he would have made it into the river and floated down river and they didn't find him for, say, 10, 12, or ever, we would have another body. And I bet you people would be crying right now that it was a smiley face killer that got another victim, or somewhat of the smiley face killer, right? So, or a copycat of the smiley face river. So
Right.
when I think of conspiracy, I'm thinking like, well, maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was really Brian Schaefer himself being intoxicated, getting disoriented and ending up in the river and just floating. And I mean, at this point, 18 years, could have been eaten by animals. Obviously he'd be disintegrated. Like,
Mhm.
probably are never going to find him. And I think the likelihood of that is 50-50, just as much as Clinton Meredith would have done something inside the bar and then hide his body in the walls, which I'm sure, right? They were bringing like little stud finders and stuff in there. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I would think. So I think that one's out. Or they carried him out piece by piece, but you would have to see them going in and out for a
Yeah.
long period of time. Or what, they throw them in the freezer?
Oh, yeah, that
I
would
don't
be
know.
easy.
You know?
Like that place would glow up like a little glow stick if you were cutting somebody in the back or anything, right? You can't hide that stuff. You cannot hide any of that.
I know the
Blood.
smiley face is funny theory, to be honest with you. But Dal, what would you do if at work you go in the back and all of a sudden you lift up the freezer and you just see like a half dead corpse, or not a half dead, but a half a corpse sitting in your freezer? Would you say something?
No. Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
and
I'm on
yeah,
the phone ASAP. 100%. Yeah, no. And one, I would never open a freezer again. That'd be traumatizing. When I get so scared at dumpsters, I'm like, don't. I really do. It freaks me out. I phobia. Never happened. I watched too much of this stuff.
no, that's true. But I
But
always believe in my own head I'm the scariest thing in the dark. So I'm like, if
right.
anything jumps out at me, um, actually, kind of side note, I was one night I was at the apartment in Lethbridge when I was going to school. You remember my apartment when we went rollerblading and all that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the landlord, so there was these kids partying, and we're all college students, right? And they were super cool, but we weren't partying with them that night, and they were out in the like mezzanine area, and my door went, or my glass sliding doors went right out to the mezzanine, so they were right in front of my doors, and they had a little fire going. And at some point they put it out, they went back in, but somebody had called maintenance on them, or not maintenance, but the I don't know, the property managers. And by that
Right.
point I had only met the wife, right? Because her husband was managing another property and then he was going to meet her. So I had been in this place for about a week and a half. And we were sitting there and we were watching a scary movie and we had the lights off, right? And I had my roommates with me, and two girls, right? And I was just sitting there and I was just chilling, like absolutely chilling. But where my TV was, I could out of the corner of my eye see the glass sliding doors. And suddenly in the dark, this man shows up at the door and starts knocking on it, and I freaked out. Like I didn't process nothing. I just freaked out and I just saw the girls like, and I jumped up and just started hitting the glass door like as hard as I could, right? And those doors
Yeah.
are strong, and I
Yeah.
just wouldn't stop. And then I unlocked the door and went to go, and he's like, I'm property man, you know what I mean? But that's how
Yeah.
fast, like, you just kind of have that freak out of like, hey. And so I always thought, if somebody jumps out at me in the dark, like, I'm not gonna be able to control myself. So they probably
Watch
shouldn't
out.
do that. Yeah, like gun, knife. I'm not gonna think twice, right? Because fight or flight
Oh
at
my
that point.
God.
So
No, it's not.
yeah. So just think like that when you open that dumpster. Like, somebody's gonna hit you. You're probably gonna hit them
Oh God.
first.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it's yeah, I don't like taking my garbage out at night, but yeah, it's a fear.
Yeah.
A fear. So,
Do you have a taser?
but
Are you guys even allowed to have tasers in Canada?
no, we can't do nothing. We'd probably get in trouble if we protected ourselves. Seriously.
Oh, fair enough.
Like, our government's that messed up. Our justice system is I wish we had yours sometimes. Trust me.
Well, it depends on
Yeah.
what state you're in, though. So not all states are
Oh,
created
yeah.
equal. You know what I mean?
Oh, just a little tougher than ours. Just a little bit tougher. Ours is pretty much, unfortunately, what was it? Oh yeah, there was a man who recently in Alberta, he got probation for murder. Pretty
Well,
awesome.
if we ever have the chance, we really got to do the story where that guy beheads the guy on the Greyhound bus and he's out
Oh
of
my
jail
gosh.
now. Now we'll do that at a later time, but I read that
Yeah,
story time and time again, and I'm like, I don't know how you can behead somebody on a bus, like clean off,
horrific. Horrific.
and now you're free. I think what did he
Yeah.
spend 20 years? I don't even think he spent quite 20
Yes.
years.
He used to work at the Walmart, they said,
Yeah,
on in Clearview here in Edmonton.
yeah,
And yeah, just totally just wacko. You know what? Let him do it again. But so far, I don't know where he's at these days. But yeah, that was horrible. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a horrible incident and how long it took. Yeah, I watched a documentary on that and just awful, 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 awful.
Well, let me ask
I
you
could
one
not imagine.
last question on Brian Schaffer,
Yeah.
and then we can
Yes.
move forward. But um, do you think that they're ever going to be able to solve this case? It's been 18 years. I know cases reopen. There's a lot of eyes on this case. A lot of people do the stories. Do you deep down
Hmm.
think that this is ever going to be solved, or do you just think it's going to be an ongoing conspiracy?
Unfortunately, every unfortunately every documentary that has been on YouTube pretty much has the similar story. Nobody knows. Nobody has any answers. There's no evidence of where he's at. With just that, it is unfortunate that I don't think it will ever be solved. And at the same time, if you have nothing new to go on, it's it's just that, which is unfortunate. But you know, at the end of the day, luck might run out and people might start talking, and let's hope that happens because it'd be nice to know. Like their family wants to know. But as of right now, I think unfortunately this is one that is lost.
I'm with you on that
Sad
one.
as
I
that sounds.
think that if Clint
Yeah.
and Meredith do know something, which I don't know, I'm 50-50 on it, right? I think it would be
Yeah.
close to their death before anything would ever come out because they're not, obviously. And if the cops thought it was them, I'm sure there'd be a lot of pressure. Now, I've never been through that, so I don't know what that pressure looks like. But I just think that this one is definitely not going to be solved. Just like the Corey Braun case, you never hear about it, right? I never heard about it, and I lived in the area. Like absolute
Right.
insanity. I didn't even hear about it, and it was an hour and a half away from where I was born, right? So I'm like, that's never going to be solved. Now, I shouldn't say never, but there's such a high percentage of cases where people go missing and it's just never solved. Now, obviously, resources are limited and you can't focus all your resources on one person because it happens quite frequently. But you would think
That's a
with
sad
all
thing.
the coverage, yeah. Because you'd have to have one for one, right? Like for every person that went
Yeah.
missing, you'd have to have at least one person in law enforcement that was looking for them with nothing new starting tomorrow. So the world would just have to basically stop. But as we seen with COVID, crimes didn't stop when COVID hit. People didn't stop going missing when COVID hit, right? Domestics didn't stop when COVID hit. It just
No.
ended up behind closed doors. So you've got all of these things that happen, and you just don't have, the right amount of people to be able to solve these cases with everything else that goes on a day-to-day basis. And this is really sad because I personally think that the family's never going to get closure. I think if something does come out, there'll be some fake things that pop up from time to time.
No.
Now, is it possible? Yeah, I mean, if you look at like the Gilgo Beach killer, Rex Heuermann, he got away with a lot of murders for a long time. Smiley face killer does come up in that one too, I believe, no context. And then now they're going after him. Now he hasn't been uh, fully found guilty yet, right? So he's going through his trial and all that stuff, or at least I haven't checked in on that one for a while. But and that all came down to a pizza box. But you look at cases like that, there is hope that something could happen over time. But typically, what'll happen is it would be a serial killer or something that has a lot of very similarities for them to open
Yeah.
up that case and tie it back. And then you would have to have that Jeffrey Dahmer effect where they want to talk about it, right? Where
Right.
a lot of serial killers will say they might not even remember the name or the case, and they'll just say like, "Hey, I buried this person here." I think that's the only hope, and unfortunately, that's a gruesome hope. But at the end of the day, I think that's the only way this case ever gets solved. So
Yeah, I don't it is unfortunate with how many cases do go unsolved and people get away with it. And it's like there's so many missing. Even I have a friend who I used to work with, and unfortunately, actually, her sister was on America's Most Wanted. Her name was Jessica Foster. She went to Las Vegas with a boyfriend back in, I think it was 2008. Um, Went down there in March with her boyfriend. Has never been seen again. Never. They thought that she might have been part of human trafficking.
yeah,
And yeah, they would have like her picture on side of buses down there. Yeah, America's Most Wanted did an episode on her, and nope, still to this day, absolutely nothing. Even like with my friend who went unfortunately missing last year in um, Fort Smith in Northwest Territories, was at a party, and nope.
yeah.
Out of such a small town, like I don't know, 3,000 people. You're telling me you don't know where this man is? It's a shame.
It's like
Such a
Marshall
shame.
Awasa and Ryan Shutka,
Right?
same thing, just up and disappeared. At least they found Marshall Awasa's truck. I think Ryan Shutka was probably more animal related. I couldn't say for sure, but it is scary because for all the cases that we know, there's thousands out there that we don't know that share similar stories. Why do some get more attention than others? Who knows, right? Um, but yeah, that's sad. So I don't think we've agreed. I know we were going to have Shauna next week, and I haven't heard from her. So I'll reach
Yes.
out to her on Monday just to see how she's feeling, because then we'll do part two of the court systems. But
Yeah.
if we don't do that, what do you think about doing the Brian Koberger case? Because that's getting pretty hot right here. That was the
Okay.
Idaho killers.
Okay. Done.
You want to do that? So
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
what I'll
If your
do,
friend's
yeah.
not in.
No, no, no. So she just hasn't reached back out. So if
Yeah.
she's in, we'll definitely do that. And then we'll do part two of the Canadian court systems, because I think her telling her story would be, because she went through, I don't want to say similar because I haven't heard her whole story, but, some of the
Mhm.
same things with the court systems that you did. Obviously, a different story. It's her story to tell, but she went through it during COVID as well. And
Oh God.
yeah, that made for a lot of restless nights, we'll say. Um,
Oh,
and so, comfort levels got to be there. And I definitely don't want to make somebody uncomfortable. So if she decides that she wants to wait or reformulate or whatever the case is, I think that Brian Koberger case, I followed that pretty closely. I probably know every detail of that one, which is crazy. And I still sit here say, I don't know if he's going to be found guilty. Now, I say that knowing that 90% chance that he's going to be, because I think where the case is taking place. But I think that
right?
his prosecutor his defense attorney is actually doing a good job. But again, I was totally wrong on the Nikolai Mew case. I thought there's no way that he's not getting self defense. And after watching the jury testimony about he had the chance to walk away, even though there's no duty to retreat in Wisconsin. They said he had multiple chances, right? That's one of the jurors said. Um,
Okay.
to me, I didn't see it that way, but I wasn't a juror, so I think Koberger will be found guilty. But I think he's putting up a pretty good case. So I would love to talk about that a little bit and kind of see. So for anybody that's on here, if you're a fan of the Brian Koberger cases, throw some things in the comments. Let us know what you heard or some of the stuff that's not in mainstream that might be some rumors. I would love to talk about some of the rumors surrounding the case, and then we'll deep dive into that case and kind of talk step by step of what happened. I will tell you, until they arrested Brian Koberger, I really thought it was the guy that they left the bar with that you see in the video walking behind him,
Mm,
right?
yes.
You know,
Because he was there for a long time, just standing there
yep.
watching them.
Well, he was,
Sorry, I
and
just
then
like
he left. Like you
right.
could see him leave, and that's why I think he was exonerated right away. But I thought maybe he left and then came and got dropped off near there. Like I had this
Yeah.
whole theory, but obviously I was wrong. I'm wrong on a lot of them. But no context says Lars Mitkin and Brianna Maitland. I don't know if I said that right, are very mysterious. And then she said that she likes that we're bringing it to British Columbia. Well, I'll tell you this, no context. Both Dallas and I are
Yeah.
British Columbians. Well, I guess you were born in Lethbridge, but Houston, you were there most of your
Crazy.
life, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, mom moved us around a lot, but yeah, BC definitely home. Well, now Edmonton, but I would love to. I keep saying I'm going back to BC sooner or later. Going back.
it's funny because
One of these days.
I represent Calgary with the Stampeders hat, and then I represent the Rough Riders for Saskatchewan. I never
Yeah, yeah,
watched
yeah.
their football, but I'm like I like their
Yeah.
stuff. But obviously, heritage is all from Saskatchewan. But
Right.
yeah, do you want to take us home? Wrap us up?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you guys for everything, joining us tonight. We would love to see you guys again next Friday, at 8:30, same time. We'll post during the week what we will be doing. But yeah, no, tonight was good. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. And then I just want to give a huge shout out to No Context. Always here. Love the engagement. You're very much appreciated by both Dallas and I. And then for everybody else, definitely jump in here. We love having the chat going. And then any comments, if you're watching this after the recording, if there's somebody you want to see or if there's anything that we missed, I love going back and seeing some of the things because sometimes it's intentional because I don't think that it's significant and then I hear from you folks, and then I'm like, okay, that might have been a little bit more significant. I get roasted on my videos on that sometimes, and I'll write it down, and then I'll go back and see, did I write it in my notes? And if I didn't, then it's a good ad. But if I did, I won't go back and justify it, but I'll do it for the next video. Like this was insignificant, I should put it in the next video. So everybody
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
wonderful weekend, and we will see you here next week.
Perfect.